Coming up on the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, we talk about specialists and particularly kickers and why we would need to sign one at all. We'll tell you all of that. And Tom Vanderford joins the show. This is the Locked On Ole Miss podcast.
You are Locked On Ole Miss, your daily podcast on the Ole Miss Rebels. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
All right, welcome to the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, and thank you for making that Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So do us a favor, subscribe to the YouTube channel, hit the bell for notifications when new videos get posted, which happens fairly frequently, and of course, upvote the video itself. And if we hit 1,000 YouTube channel subscribers by football season, that's not the Sunday after the Troy game. That'll be before kickoff. If we hit 1,000 subscribers, we will be doing post-game live, a show featuring that we will rotate out Ole Miss legends, high school coaches, talking about the game. It's going to be about a half hour. It'll be completely interactive with a chat, and you can participate in that. It should be a lot of fun. So, as you could tell by the thumbnail today, I'm really excited about cruise missiles and Jonathan Cruz, the transfer from Charlotte. Now, many people don't know why we would waste a scholarship on a kicker. I mean, Caden Costa's going through that. He's obviously got a year to go through whatever he needs to go through, but he cannot go out there and kick or maybe even practice until before the Mississippi State game. Just, that's the way it is. And Ole Miss, if they felt they were going to compete or had a chance to compete, they were going to sign a kicker. And this is why. If they thought the ceiling was 7-5 and 8-4, honestly, Kill Nation or whoever else is involved would be on the field and they would work and they would just go with it. And they would use that scholarship for somebody else that were 2 or 3 years of eligibility that could help increase the transformation of this roster. That's what Lane Kiffin would have done. But he has obviously noticed how talented this team looks. Now remember, with this team, they have 34, 33, somewhere in there, high schoolers that were 4 and 5 star ranked. You know, those guys. Last year, the number was about 17. So it's almost doubled in a year's time. So it's completely transformed this roster. And because of that, Ole Miss is getting 20-1 odds to win the SEC. They're 5,000 plus 5,000 to win the college football playoff. And what you need is Lane Kiffin is going to do what Lane Kiffin does inside the 25-yard line. At this point, we're 2 years in. It's not going to change. He's going to do what he's going to do. But what happens when it's 4th and 17 from the 32 and it leaves a 49-yard field goal on the table? He wants those 3 points. He needs those 3 points to get to the level that he needs to get to. The difference between 2020 and 2021 was a lot of ways Caden Costa and his consistency kicking the football. Now with Jonathan Cruz, he is like 7 for 8, including a 56-yarder game winner against Florida Atlantic. He is a long-range field goal specialist. He might not be the best short guy, but as we said, if it's inside the 25-yard line, it's a good chance Lane Kiffin might go for it to begin with. But you have those longer field goals, he is going to be good from distance. That is going to add points. It's going to help field position. If he is consistent and he makes it, it will help field position. And it will make those games against A&M, make those games against Alabama, make those games against Arkansas more winnable, more important. So Jonathan Cruz from Charlotte is low-key one of the higher-rated transfers of this class. If he thinks the ceiling is the playoff or Atlanta, that's what we're talking about, that ceiling. Because if it was 7-5, 8-4, I don't think he would have used a scholarship on a kicker. It tells you what Lane Kiffin thinks of this team. And also tells you that Lane Kiffin goes team to team. He doesn't build programs. It's team to team. It is from the 2020 team to the 2021 team. And each year he tries to make that unit the best that it can be. He's not trying to necessarily build up there. Now all that is a tangible thing. That transformation is going to naturally happen. But he focused, it looks like, more team to team. So we'll see what it looks like whenever John Summerall, former linebacker coach at Ole Miss, comes into Oxford when Troy comes into town. So Jonathan Cruz has a chance to be the long-range guy. And we're going to talk about the return specialist. Because the spring game, there's no grade. The grade for this will be incomplete all the way around. Because there was really no special teams done in the spring game. So all of this will be new. But whenever we come back, I'm going to tell you what we did see in the spring game that is interesting. Also, Ole Miss signee Frasier Mason was on campus. I think he was punting and all that in the spring game. He was doing that. So the specialists are working, and the specialists are going to be unbelievably important for this season. Summer is coming, and with summer, you're going to need some food on the go. Built Bars are the perfect snack to take with you on family vacations. Throw them in your bags, your kids' backpacks, and make sure everyone has a bar so you are fueled for your summer adventures. The best part about Built Bars, they're healthy and delicious. No more sacrificing. Delicious food for health with Built Bars. You can have both. All you have to do is go to Built.com and order now. So you can go to Built.com, get all your favorites, banana cream pie, raspberry, double chocolate, and many more. They're all delicious, and new flavors are coming out all the time. I've got a box coming right now of double chocolate. That is fantastic. Check them out at Built.com. So here's the offer. Go to Built.com, use promo code LOCKED15, all one word, and get 15% off your order. Use promo code LOCKED15 for 15% off at Built.com. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms. Do not forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Give us a 5-star review. You can say whatever you want. You can say that Steve looks kind of funny in his Ole Miss tradition shirt, or Steve talks a little funny, or Steve has a weird Mississippi accent. Say whatever you want to. Just give us a 5-star review. That'll help others whenever they search that. The Locked On Ole Miss podcast will appear. So thank you very much for that. We're going to continue to remind you to do it. We're going to say it over and over. Tell a friend. Get them to subscribe to the podcast as well. Rate and review us, the whole 9 yards, and cascade this down the line. We're trying to do things a little bit differently at the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. We're not relying on the written word. We are providing commentary and perspectives of what's going on. We're not about breaking news. There's no news really to break. It all happens. It hits Twitter within 3 minutes, and it's all wasted effort leading up to that. So we're going to talk about the stuff that's important, and we are going to really not pay attention to things that are not important at that moment. So don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. 5-star review. You can say whatever you want to say. All right. So in the first segment, we talked about Jonathan Cruz and the Cruz missiles, and also we took our victory lap a little bit about that, because we talked about really since February how the end of this transfer cycle would probably look, and it's kind of happening that way. Now, it could always do different things, and things could change, because we're upfront and honest that while the 32 is ironclad, we don't know what the actual count is, because nobody's talking about that. So we're guessing, we're looking, we're seeing what's left, and it looked like Deion Smith and a kicker was the last two behind Malik Heath, and we'll see how that plays out. But if it does, it's victory lap time for us, and I think we talked about that a little bit with Tom Vanderford in the next segment. So Frasier Mason and Jonathan Cruz are probably going to handle the specialist duties. The return game. I do not know about kickoff returns, because you did not see that in the spring game. But the punt returns, an interesting thing was Tysheem Johnson was back there catching punts. And I've been telling you for 18 months, if you go back to me with the Palmcast, about how Tysheem Johnson was a super athlete. And he was Honey Badger-esque. That's the type of football player he was. And them putting him back potentially at punt return shows that. It's almost like, you hate to say Jabril Peppers but with Chris Partridge helping coach the defense, you almost see them building a Jabril Peppers type role for Tysheem Johnson. You got the Isheem Young and Darius Tennyson and Otis. You got a whole bunch of physical that can play near the line of scrimmage, and that's going to allow you to do different things with Tysheem. But him returning punts is very interesting if they do a good job of that going in. it'll be interesting to see exactly what he does. And I have said interesting way too much the last couple of sentences, but I think that's the correct word for what we're dealing with here. I think it could be on the right track. It's one of those things that's like a natural progression for Tysheem Johnson is returning punts. Now, we haven't had a punt return at Ole Miss since, I don't know, let's see. You didn't really have one on the last couple of years. You didn't have one under Matt Luke. That was a huge sore spot with Hugh Freeze. When was the last one? Good grief. That's absolutely crazy. That shows you how much of a sore spot punt return has been. Actually, in the comment section below, post a punt return that you remembered like being steady. The one I want to go back to is like Jason Armstead, but that's too many, right? Maybe Mike Espy. Those guys. That was Cutcliffe, early Orgeron, returning punts. That's kind of interesting. But punt return has been a sore spot for a while with Ole Miss because it just became that, hey, let's put somebody back there that can catch the football. And if they can catch the football, they're going to be on the right track. Anyway, BetOnline is your number one source for all of your betting stats and sports information. Find all your latest sports developments and league reviews and news, including this year's basketball playoffs, Major League Baseball, and this weekend's Run to the Roses as the Kentucky Derby is back. BetOnline is your continued source for all your sporting wagering information from live betting, playoffs, esports, and more. Head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends and action. BetOnline, where the game starts. You can also pick up Ole Miss at plus 5,000 to win the college football playoff. So that's BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. We are free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. So subscribe to the YouTube channel. Once we hit 1,000, we will do a post-game live show. Tom will be one of our guests on the post-game live show from time to time. And we're going to be able to do live. You'll be able to interact. It'll have a chat that's visible. It's going to be really cool. But we need 1,000 subscribers to get there. So subscribe, tell a friend, have them subscribe, and just build that subscriber count up. Because we're probably going to hit it. But let's just blow it away just to be safe anyway. But I've got an Ole Miss legend. I've got a high school coach. Tom's going to stop by. I'm going to try and get Kara from time to time to stop by. And we're going to do that. And also, as we get closer to football season, Twitter Spaces. We're going to do it Twitter Spaces. We have an intern that is going to run that. And I'm going to be on there. I'm going to try and get Tom on there and Kara on there. And we'll be able to talk a little bit on the Twitter platform about Ole Miss sports. So it's all about that. Anyway, I'm here with Tom Vanderford. We're going to talk a little bit Ole Miss sports. I think last week I had family in town for like 2 weeks and it threw my schedule off. So it's been a little while since we talked to him. How you doing, Tom?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. It's always a good thing whenever we can talk about Ole Miss sports. And honestly, refresh my memory. Is there a post-spring conversation we had, or is this the first conversation?
I don't think we had a post-spring conversation. I really don't. Yeah, we didn't touch on that much, but I got a lot of good vibes from spring.
Yeah, I did.
Michael Trigg is a man.
Oh yeah,
he's good grief.
Oh yeah,
and I think we've got the most depth we've had at quarterback in a long time. I thought Kincaid Dent looked good in the role that he was in, and Dart was pushing himself, but that'll come with time. And I thought Luke looked good. So
yeah. It's going to be an interesting quarterback controversy or competition into the fall. Jackson Dart, though, I will say this. His numbers, and everybody's going to look at it and say, oh, Jackson Dart absolutely did not look good. He struggled. I'm not saying he didn't. But whenever things went right and things looked good, it looked really good, like next level good. So if you can increase that into other and do it more often, Jackson Dart looks like he probably has a clear chance to win that job. If he doesn't, Luke Altmaier's going to win it.
Well, exactly. And unlike years past, you're on pins and needles not wanting Matt Corral to get hurt or Bo Wallace or whoever it is. You don't want injury for anybody, but you feel a lot more comfortable with your depth at quarterback this year than in previous years. I thought the running backs, I mean, Zach Evans just came in, made a statement, and went and sat on the sidelines, you know. But we look pretty good at running back.
Yeah.
Defense, I saw some 4-man fronts. I saw some different things. We didn't have the people the last 2 years to have a 4-man front, and I think our base will always be the 3-2-6. But you know, if you've got a run heavy team, you could always, we have the depth now to slap some big fast bodies down and, you know, do some things.
Provide some options. Yeah,
exactly. Linebacker, I thought looked pretty good. We could always, you know, use a little bit more depth there, I'm sure. The offensive line, I thought I saw some good things. I saw some not so good things. You know, when Jackson got out there with the guys he had in the very beginning, there were some issues. But I thought as the game progressed and, you know, some things got a little bit better, I think we've got a little bit depth on the offensive line. But the thing that blew me away the most, man, was Trigg. Good grief. Just like you know, and we've talked about this before, but Lane Kiffin just tells you the truth. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. He doesn't talk in parables. He's like, look, this guy's like watching a high schooler play with a bunch of middle schoolers. And
it was absolutely
we saw
honest.
that.
Yeah.
We saw that. He's a freaking monster. And, you know, this was his first spring practice in college. He was a true freshman last year. So he's only going to get better.
He reminds me so much of Rufus French.
Me too.
So much.
The hands. You know, that was a big thing with Rufus. If you got it anywhere close to him, he was going to catch you.
Yeah. And he might be a little bit more athletic than Rufus. But, yeah, he's the same tight end.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, Rufus was an All-American for Ole Miss. So, you know, I'll take an All-American tight end every day. But, yeah, I was impressed with that. I was impressed with our overall depth. I really was. It's been a long time since we've been able to just split up teams and go at it.
Yeah.
You know, it's been a long time of coming. And I give all that credit to Lane, the staff, the portal. That big talent infusion we had, I saw a lot of good things. Pegues I knew he was good, but he's going to be a monster, you know, and we can get him either way. You know, we can throw a pass to him or, you know, I think they had a little fun with that on that conversion, you know, throwing him that pass on that 2-point conversion. But yeah, we really did good in the portal. And we really didn't see a lot of guys that are going to be major contributors next year.
Yeah, and J.J. Pegues allows us to do the 4-man front from time. Because he is a true 3 technique. So you can put out there and do all that because most everybody else is recruited for a 3-man front. 5 technique ends, nose guards, things like that. But J.J. Pegues, even though he can play some nose guard with that, he can do some honest-to-God Parade 3 technique type things.
Yeah. Yeah, and, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that because that's who he kind of reminds me of is Parade Jerry. He's quick and he's strong. And so that's you know, I saw a lot of positives. I really didn't see some of the negatives that some others saw that I read, you know, on the internet, Twitter, wherever, where they were, you know, one guy, he said that you know, Altmaier was horrible and Dart was horrible and, you know, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, dude, it's a spring game. It's a logical progression to the fall. You know, you do the spring game, then you do your off-season stuff, then you do the fall practice and you start installing all of your stuff for the first game, and that it's just a progression. So to look at that and see the pick 6 by Tysheem and get all mad, it's like, dude, it's the spring, man. It's okay.
If you take anything from 11 on 11, that includes the 4-man front that we're going to, Anything 11 on 11, anything scheme-based out of a spring game, you're doing it wrong because John Sumrall is recording this. Everybody is recording this that we're going to play.
Yeah.
And they're trying to build up a game plan. Now, even if the scheme doesn't mean anything because they know that, they still can get player reads. That's the reason they do it. You can kind of find out who is the dude. Now, Michael Trigg is probably going to be focused on in the first game because of that spring game. Because they know they don't have anybody on their roster that can cover him.
Exactly. And in that spring game, they didn't see Braylon Brown. They didn't see Knox. They didn't see a lot of people at wideout, Mingo. They didn't see, if we're lucky enough to get Smith and some other. They didn't see those guys. So, it's going to be an extremely potent offense. But we've talked about it before. After seeing our running back situation, I think we're going to be utilizing that big time. Maybe 65-35. You look at Bentley. He caught that little pass out of the backfield, and it's like, dude, he was gone everywhere, zipping.
Both of them are excellent receivers. Him and Jack Evans. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Speaking of that, the draft surprised me. We had 6 people drafted. That was awesome. I've always been a Dean Leonard fan. Mm-hmm. So I'm kind of happy that he got selected. It kind of surprised me that Jerrion didn't get selected.
His 40 time was not very good.
Yeah, it was like 4.55.
Yeah, and he's a guy that's small enough. It needs to fly. He needs to look like Chris Johnson.
Exactly. If he was 6'2", 220, 4.55 would have been awesome, but he's not.
Yeah, see Snoop.
But he's a tough little kid. Yeah, Snoop got drafted. He's a tough little guy. So, I kind of mixed emotions over all of that. I feel bad that Matt fell to where he did, but I think it's a good fit for Matt.
Yeah.
A.J. Brown got paid.
Yeah.
As somebody who liked watching him with the Titans and them being close to home, that's kind of a bummer, but the guy got paid.
Yeah.
$100 million. Mm-hmm. That's right. Yep.
Well, also, to this show, by the way, in the first couple of segments we talk about is me essentially taking my victory lap about the transfer portal and how it's gone and talking about Jonathan Cruz.
Cruise missile.
Yeah, I am way too happy about that saying cruise missiles. And the fact that since January almost, we was like, hey, Deion Smith, kicker. And it looks like it might just be that. It might be exact. It could be more. We don't know the exact numbers. Like I said, we don't know if there's players in December that count backwards. We don't know exactly what it is. All we know is the 32 is ironclad.
Yeah.
And you can't really get around that. So the two that we figured was the Deion Smith and the kicker. Now we think Deion Smith is going to show up because Cam Johnson from Vanderbilt, we started ghosting him.
Yeah.
They were worried about Deion Smith. Cam Johnson, they would have stuck on him. And the kid from Central Florida, you don't really hear that much about him. So I think in about 4 weeks, Deion Smith is going to show up on campus along with Malik Heath, Jack Abraham, who's going to be a walk-on, and the kicker, Jonathan Cruz, who is, I think, 7 of 8 from 50-plus yards in his career. He's a long-range guy. And that's why it's important, because we're going to go for it inside 35 yards. He goes for it a lot. What Lane Kiffin needs is, okay, it's 4th and 17, and it's going to be a 52-yard field goal. It'd be nice to be able to count on 3 points right there. So that's the reason he went out and got him.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. And he may be one of the most important additions we have.
Mm-hmm.
If our defense plays like I think they're going to, we're going to be in every single game we play this year.
Yeah, and if Lane Kiffin did not think this team had a lot of potential, he would have not signed a kicker this year. They would have used Kill Nation and just did the best they can, went 8-4. did the Music City Bowl or the Belt Bowl or Duke's Mayo Bowl or whatever it's called.
Yeah, whatever it's called now. Yeah.
But he sees something. He sees the talent. He sees what it looks like when Jackson Dart runs things smoothly with Michael Trigg. He knows that Deion Smith's coming. Braylon Brown in practice is going to be a stud. Jalen Knox, we have not seen Jalen Knox. We don't know exactly what this offense will look like when all those pieces are together. And because of that, I mean, this team is 20-1 odds, according to Caesars Online. 20-1 to win the SEC, behind Alabama and Georgia, tied with A&M.
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, we're not hyping this team up. It's legitimately talented. But like I say, it's one thing to be talented. It's quite another thing to be good.
Exactly. And that's what I love about the staff we have, the pro mindset mentality. They're going to cultivate that talent.
They really are. Now, let's get off of football a little bit. Enough happy conversation. Let's talk. Let's talk a little bit about the baseball team and how you see this going as this stretches on. What do you think is going to happen?
Jeez, man, I really, to be honest with you, I just don't know. I mean, we win the first game at Arkansas, and then we just barely lose the other two, and it's, the bad luck stuff. This is my gut, though. I think that the only way that Mike Bianco won't be our coach again next year is if Mike Bianco decides it's time to retire. I don't agree with that exactly, but I think that the two guys that we want the most when he's not there anymore, if he doesn't have a graceful exit, they're not coming.
Yeah.
Which is Dan McDonnell and Godwin.
Yeah, and if they don't come, you're down like asking Louisiana Tech's coach to come, and there's a chance for this to get away from you, honestly. And it's
that really quick.
Because I was on the staff and in the Manning Center whenever David Cutcliffe got fired. I went through all of that and saw exactly
You saw how that just the national media just took it the wrong way. Nobody. I mean, it was a horrible thing. Only one losing season. How could you do that? Blah blah blah. And that will happen if this isn't handled correctly.
Yeah, and it's also important for people to realize whenever Cut got fired in 2004, it was not for going 4-7 in 2004. It was for interviewing at Kentucky in 2002. And their first opportunity to get rid of him, they made him pay for that. Mike Bianco talked to LSU last year. The first opportunity to get their pound of flesh from him will be this season. The alumni base can be a finicky group of people.
Well, and a lot of people are on different private message boards, but one that I'm on, there's a rumor going around that some of the big time baseball supporters are
both of them
at the end. Yeah, four of them maybe.
Yeah,
are at their wits' end. But like I said, I just keep going back to it, man. If it gets played right, and he says, "Hey, I'm going to retire. I've had a great life. I've had a lot of fun here, and we're just going to turn it over to some new folks." I think that's the best thing that could happen for Ole Miss.
Yeah, I think honestly the best case situation for Ole Miss at this point is talk Mike Bianco into resigning and pay him the full buyout. So the verbiage isn't of fired. That's probably the best case situation because you're right. If fired shows up on that press release, it could get problematic in a hurry.
Exactly. And you got to remember that both those guys that would be our top two picks, I assume, they're very loyal to Bianco. I mean, he gave them their in baseball, and they're very loyal to him, and they're not gonna come play if they feel like it wasn't handled properly.
Yeah. And it's real easy for Ole Miss baseball to end up as Alabama or Auburn in the
Exactly.
near future. Don't understand. This isn't given. This is going to be a risk if you make the change, because that dude is Ole Miss Baseball. Ole Miss Baseball really doesn't exist without the 22 years that he did. So if you want to move on for that, there is no sure thing you're going to sign. You're not going to get Tim Corbin. You're not going to do anything like that. But all I'm saying is just be careful, be patient, and also be prepared for the worst to happen. Anyway, thanks for making the Locked On Ole Miss podcast your first listen every day. Tune in next week when we kind of start our off-season mode of what's going on. Mount Rushmore should start to appear next week. I think we're one Ole Miss baseball loss away from officially being in the off-season. So if that happens, we will do the Mount Rushmores. Anyway, get all your daily SEC news in less than 30 minutes with SEC expert Chris Doherty on Locked On SEC. It's free and available wherever you get your podcast. Tom, thank you very much. I look forward to this every week, and I will catch up to you next week, bud.
Yes, sir. Hotty toddy.
Hotty toddy.